adversely. And if I could read the affidavit that was written by Kiplagat, that he's talking about you severally. Things went as usual, for example, saying, and Katwa picked me using a Mercedes car, and I was surprised to see the judge talking about Tunoi at the back seat. Instead of proceeding to Mike's office, Katwa called Kiprop Chirchir, who had picked governor, and instructed him to come to petrol station near Mike's office. And he goes on and says how you are there until this money was delivered, saying the judge told the governor, and I quote here, "Si umeona ni mimi mwenyewe." Now, what do you have to say about this?
What I would like to say is that it is completely untrue. Everything said in that paragraph, in those paragraphs, are completely untrue. I would probably want to say this, that the Geoffrey Kiplagat being referred to is somebody I know.
Do you know him?
Yes, I do know him, and I need to clarify that. I know him as a journalist who used to work with KASFM. I have had quite a number of transactions with KASFM. He is a friend of a number of people I know, and for those reasons I know him.
So you're saying because you've had a lot of interactions with KASFM?
Yes.
Him specifically?
Yes, in the course of transacting with KASFM, yes, I have.
In what sense? What do you mean transacting like?
Well, I have made visits to KASFM in relation to a number of, either for purposes of interviews, or for purposes of business, or for purposes of the case against Mr. Sang.
Yeah.
And in the course of those transactions, I have met Mr.
Any transaction that you've had with him specifically?
Probably I should describe if I've used the word transaction, it is in the sense that I have met him.
Yeah.
I've talked with him, but I've never had any business transaction with him.
Okay.
And in respect to these allegations he makes about me and Justice Tunoi, they are completely and absolutely untrue. I noticed, for instance, that he says that I made calls to him on the 27th, and that I told him I would pick him, and that I actually picked him and took him to a petrol station where money changed hands. Those allegations are completely untrue.
Yeah. So you deny all that.
Yes.
You've just said here, just want to go before we go to Mutua and Sifuna, you've said you know him through the transactions you've had with KASFM.
Yes.
And also through other people.
Yes.
What did you mean through other people? Which other people are these?
Well, at KASFM, of course, I deal with a number of people.
So it's confined to the employees of
Yes,
it
is in relation to my dealings with KASFM.
Okay. You're also saying the allegations he made against you and Tunoi are completely false.
Yes,
is it you alone or Tunoi as well? You're talking for both of you.
Let me clarify that. I'm speaking for myself here. And to the extent to which he says that I had transactions which involved me, him and Tunoi, and whichever other people, it is completely untrue.
You've never had such transactions with him?
Absolutely
What about
not.
the governor, Kidero? Have you ever had any transactions with him together with Kiplagat?
Absolutely not.
All right. I'll come back to you later on. First, I want to ask the LSK chair, how big or major is all this, and what does it portend for the judiciary?
But before you Mr. Probably I just wanted to make another observation. When this thing came up, I was very surprised, and I was even more surprised when I saw that the affidavit being relied on was sworn on the 22nd of November 2014.
Yeah.
And curiously, it is sworn by an advocate by the name Isa Mansour. It doesn't indicate who drew it. And
so it doesn't indicate?
It doesn't indicate who drafted the affidavit.
Okay.
And I am tempted to assume that it must have been drafted by the same Isa who swore it. And
for any reasons you know?
I can only speculate. I speculate that the possibility is that I speculate from the position that I know Mansour, whom I hold in very high regard and is my friend. I know him to act for the judiciary. From time to time, he acts, yes, for the Judicial Service Commission. And it is of some significance to me that he's the one who drafted that affidavit. Now,
why him? Why are you saying it's him? Why him?
The fact that this is a judicial officer, the judge, the fact that he acts for Judicial Service Commission, and the fact that the Judicial Service Commission did not take an action since the November 2014 up to now. Now, even coming from the proposition that the Judiciary or the Judicial Service Commission is very anxious to make sure that there is no impropriety in the handling of cases and so on and so forth. I would have thought that when this complaint was made in November 2014, it would be an issue of extreme gravity to them, and they wouldn't have let it rest all the time from 2014 to 2016.
Okay.
Because over that period, a number of cases have been handled by the judge, and I would have thought that if they are really concerned that there is some impropriety in the conduct of this judge, they would have stemmed the issue.
Okay, should have come earlier. I'll come back to you later. What do you make of what he's saying and all of this?
I think to come to your first question, the allegations definitely are very serious allegations, especially given that they touch on not just the Honorable Justice Tunoi, but they touch on other judges. Why am I saying they touch on other judges? Because if at all these allegations are true, and if they are to be proved to be true, then the implication is that the money which was allegedly handed over to the judge will not be entirely for the benefit of one judge, because one judge cannot determine a decision in the Supreme Court. The way the court was constituted, at least we can conclude that if those allegations were true, then this money must have been split between minimum 4 judges. So that is the magnitude of the allegations. Coming back to what my learned friend and good friend has said, Katwa Kigen, I know I saw the affidavit that it was sworn sometimes in November. But what I know and what I've heard is that the judiciary, and when I say the judiciary, I mean the Chief Justice, of course could not just proceed on the basis of a document that he has not interrogated further. Probably due diligence would have demanded, and I'm assuming that probably he may have wanted to dig deeper and try to find out whether those allegations could be true. If you look at the affidavit, it says at one point that if anyone wants to cross-check whether what I'm saying is right or wrong, you can refer this to Safaricom, you can look at this. Probably that is what the Chief Justice was saying. And I think I must have read in one of his statements that there's a report, other than just the affidavit, there's a report which I think was prepared for the judiciary, and I think that on is this matter. On the matter,
and I want to come to that, Sifuna. He talked of an internal probe.
Yes.
First, is that right? Is that what should have happened?
Hussein, I wouldn't say whether it's right or wrong, but there are so many things that are curious about that affidavit, and I'm happy that my senior Kato Kigan has pointed out one of the most interesting bits about that particular affidavit. First of all, we know that if you have a problem with a judge, probably if you wanted a judge removed from office because of impropriety, the proper channel to follow is to lodge a petition with the Judicial Service Commission for them to investigate any allegations against the judges, and we've seen this happen before. Now, if there is an allegation of a bribe, that is an allegation of commission of a crime, an economic crime, you would make a report to the EACC. The EACC is available for all Kenyans to make a report, or to the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, so that they carry out those investigations. It is most curious that the maker of this affidavit saw it fit to present it to the Chief Justice. Another curious thing is that it took a whole 3 months. And it is not coincidence that immediately this gentleman went on TV or public about the affidavit is when we see this sense of urgency from the judiciary.
Now, let me say something. It's very important. Just
I wanted to finish.
Before I lose what he's saying, it's not mandatory that when a judge is to be removed, it must be just a petition. If it comes to the knowledge of the Judicial Service Commission, of the Chief Justice, that there is an allegation of some misconduct of some sort by a judge or another judicial officer, the Judicial Service Commission has a mandate to take upon itself, on its own motion, to investigate those allegations. And I suspect that this was not a petition by that gentleman, Mr. Kiplangat, but I think this is information which came into the knowledge of either the Chief Justice or the Judicial Service Commission, and they have decided on their own motion to investigate the authenticity of what has been in that affidavit. I just wanted to clarify that to my learned friends.
Well, that's granted. I know it's unfair to Mr. Sifuna, but I think I must interject here. I'm not very sure I understand what the President's point is, but if we follow the sequence of events, the Nation TV features this thing one evening. The next morning there's a statement whose full effect is to the effect that in fact there's a report. Now, so you can't say that they spontaneously reacted to existence of a complaint about the judge. It quite clearly suggests that there has been, this issue has been somewhere. It's not like they were acting spontaneously.
No, the point that I was trying to
make... Does that take away anything, though?
Just if I might make the point that I was trying to make. Now, my senior Katwa Kigen brought out the issue of the person who commissioned that affidavit. Now, that person who commissioned the affidavit is the person of greatest interest in this particular matter, Mr. Issa Mansour, because Mr. Mansour is an advocate for the Judicial Service Commission. Now, the Judicial Service Commission has live cases in court against Justice Tunoi. This is something that is known publicly. I know for a fact that, for instance... On
the retirement age?
Yes, absolutely. I know, for instance, that the Judicial Service Commission is sitting on at least 2 petitions that have been filed by the outgoing CEO of the Law Society of Kenya, Mr. Apollo Mboya, regarding Justice Tunoi and 4 other members of a bench in the Supreme Court. Now, what I suspect this to be is that the Judicial Service Commission has had a very difficult time trying to get rid of Justice Tunoi because of the law, but they are trying to make it such that they are going to force his hand into resignation. And that is all that I can tell you.
Agree with of course, I can't agree with that. If it's a question, I don't know why Issa Mansour's issue is coming in. Issa is an advocate, is a commissioner of oaths. The work, according to the document, the duty that Issa executed is to ask this gentleman, is the contents of this statement or affidavit correct? He says it's correct. Then I want you to sign in this space, and I want to witness that signature by commissioning it, so that you have taken an oath before me. I don't want to speculate that the affidavit was drawn by so and so, but what I can say is that the document, reading through it, tells you that it was done by an advocate. There's no doubt about that. Yes.
But may I say something about that issue? I find what the point that the President is making very curious, because you have an advocate who is in court against Justice Tunoi. He is there in the morning. In the evening, he is sitting with somebody who is making allegations against Mr. Tunoi, Justice Tunoi. And it strikes you as curious that the position is articulating in court is that Justice Tunoi should step aside. Justice Tunoi is resisting that position. Here is a situation where he's receiving material that will assist in that cause, that would procure the retirement of Justice Tunoi. But I didn't want to end my point there. I also wanted to observe, and may I say that I might be mistaken, but I thought also that Mansour is one of the secretaries in the petition against Justice there is a judge who is undergoing... yes, unless I'm mistaken.
The question is, with all that, are you saying there's no problem here that should be investigated?
No, you need to understand
with all that you're saying. Because we've had Tunoi today speak, and he said that this is a war against him.
For me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it was done by Issa Mansour as a commissioner. It doesn't even matter that it was done, the affidavit itself was drawn by Issa Mansour. Because as far as I'm concerned, the dispute in court about the retirement age of 70 and 74, where Issa may be an advocate of the Judicial Service Commission, I need to confirm that, where he could be an advocate of the Judicial Service Commission, has nothing to do with these allegations of corruption. These are quite separate allegations of corruption. I think what we should be looking at and discussing is where do we go from here? in terms of, do we investigate these allegations further? That is basically.
But they also raise a point, because Justice Philip Tunoi, there's a case pending in court.
Yes.
And the JSC, I mean, about his retirement age.
Yes.
Do you think first he will get a fair hearing? And if it's to be investigated.
The Judicial Service Commission is not hearing the case.
If it's to be investigated.
Yes, yes.
Because
they have to make a finding.
Yes, they'll have to make a finding tomorrow. And number two, apart from that, we also know that there's a lawyer here, Tom Ojenda, who sits in the JSC.
Yes.
Tom Ojenda was Kidero's lawyer.
Let me explain. The procedure, the way I understand it, is that the allegations have come to the knowledge of the Judicial Service Commission. What the Judicial Service Commission is going to do tomorrow, I presume, according to the law, is to sit down, look at the affidavit itself, and then other material which may have come to their knowledge through investigation or other internal investigation or otherwise. And if they determine that there are reasonable grounds to advise for constituting a tribunal, they would not do it immediately. They'll ask the judge to respond to those allegations.
Okay.
Once they ask the judge to respond to those allegations, they'll again constitute as JSC and now determine the response vis-a-vis the allegations. And if they find that there is still grounds where there could be grounds related to misconduct, then they will advise that a tribunal, that the president constitutes a tribunal to further now listen to the complaint.
Okay.
Yes.
The point I wanted to make is this. You know, it is very, very clear that, and this I'm speaking from my personal experience over the past 15 months, especially with cases relating to the judiciary.
Okay.
Corruption in this country has become as stigmatized as HIV was in the 80s and the early 90s. That it is the easiest way to destroy somebody's public career, that you make allegations, because you should remember that the probity of a judge, the integrity of the institution of a judge, or the integrity of the institution of the judiciary, is largely a matter of perception. That once I have cast that aspersion on you that you received a bribe, it really doesn't matter whether I end up proving that allegation.
What if it's true?
It is done. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It is one of those cases where people are never innocent until they're proven guilty. This is something that people know, that once they make that allegation against you, you're done. That's it.
So how do you I'm not saying, because Justice Tunoi has talked himself and he has denied all this, but what if it's, I mean, what if somebody comes across that he should not say it because...
No. I'm not saying that someone should not come out and say it. But the most curious thing, and you will get it from what the president has said, that you will notice that he himself has postulated that this particular allegation even affects the other 5 members of the bench who sat in the Kidero matter. There is a very, very big significance to that particular statement, because...
It's very serious.
No, this is what I'm telling you.
It's extremely serious.
That affidavit does not contain any single allegation that the rest of the bench received any money.
But that is true, isn't it?
It is true, but I explained myself.
Can I please finish?
Yes.
The reason why this particular allegation and this mud is being spread around to all the other 5 judges has to do with the succession in the judiciary. Because once somebody makes that allegation against you, you are technically out of contention for that particular seat. And I know for a fact, and the president would be lying to us if he did not acknowledge that of his own knowledge, the Secretary and CEO of the Law Society of Kenya has filed cases against 5 of those judges for misconduct. They have problems with them. It's 5 complaints.
Let me explain this. Let me just explain this. Let me have some time to explain this. What I said is this: if you read this allegation, the allegation in the affidavit, they indicate that a certain amount of money was given to one single judge.
200 million.
200 million. Justice Tunoi.
Yeah.
And what I said is this: if those allegations are true or they are proven to be correct, then the natural course of things is that this money was not meant for one judge. Because one... This is the basis.
What is your basis? Let me explain the basis. Okay.
Because a single judge in a 7 bench in the Supreme Court...
It was a 5 bench.
I'm just saying, I'm just giving you an example. A single judge in a 7 bench or in a 5 bench can never determine how a decision of the Supreme Court goes. If there is corruption, that corruption, if it is 7 bench, then 4 of them must be affected. If it is 5 bench, then 3 of them must be affected. That is what I'm saying, that this cannot, if it is true, the money could not have been just for a single judge. That is my argument.
I think
yeah, of course, because if you were to say you want to guarantee the person who is offering the bribe that the service will be delivered or the value for the money will be delivered, then you should be able to promise that I will carry on my shoulders at least half of the number of the judges who would be deciding. That's the only way you can guarantee that it will give.
Okay, so either way,
but there's a point that our president said that it doesn't matter that the advocate for the Judicial Service Commission is the same one who drew the affidavit. I do not want to over-belabor the point, but I think it is of significance that the same advocate was already given instructions by the Judicial Service Commission to conduct a case requiring the judge to step aside. He is drafting this affidavit, which will eventually end up in the Judicial Service Commission, from where you will get again instructions in all probabilities. I want to say that it is not beyond possibility that he was asked by the Judicial Service Commission I want to say it is not beyond possibility. I also want to say that I completely associate myself with what Mr. Sifuna said very eloquently, that this issue very clearly suggests that it has something to do with the politics of succession. Okay. Lastly, may I say this?
Either way, as you say that, either way, whether it has to do with politics of succession or not.
Yes.
Still, if there are cases, there's a case of bribery here, it should be investigated, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that should have been done in 2014. I think that is my point. May I say 2 last things that I had in mind to say? The first one is that I am not putting it beyond possibility that Justice Mutunga, whom I have a lot of respect for, might come up with a report making findings probably consistent with what Justice Tunoi has already said. I do not put it beyond possibility. The second thing is that I have been mentioned extensively, and I was surprised to see that in news. I was surprised to see it in the affidavit. Nobody has sought for my input to that issue. And the way I look at it, but you're not if the Chief Justice says he has a report to present, I would have thought you would be interested in knowing if I have anything to say about it.
If there was a probe going on, as you say.
Yes, and the way I see it, I have been placed very centrally in the issue. It is alleged that I am the one who witnessed and facilitated. Yes.
Because you're running out of time completely.
Yes.
Gure here is asking, then why Katwa? Why you? Why wasn't it any other lawyer like Sifuna? Why Katwa?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't know why.
Hussein, one thing that I wanted to...
But I'm not the only one in that list.
Just say to the president, and this is, I say with the greatest respect, what you were talking about, that one judge could not have taken all this money and that they needed a certain amount to be distributed so that that is a lack of imagination, because by the time Kidero's case was getting to court, the Supreme Court had already given enough rulings on that particular issue in previous cases, including Joho and including Governor Munya's case, so that any person who's going to law school should know how that case was going to go. And true to word, it was dismissed on the very same grounds as those previous cases. So if the 4 of us are seated here and we know how this decision is going to go,
but you just told him he can't be 100% that money was shared by everybody. He can't prove that.
There's no way.
But can you prove that as well?
That's what I'm saying. If you lack imagination, you cannot foresee.
I'm actually I'm very surprised. I'm very surprised by the argument by my learned friend Mr. Sifuna, because this is a very serious issue, and I think it should not be mixed up with other issues. That is one. The second thing is that the fact that the Kidero case was decided in that manner cannot be a decision. It cannot be a reason to say that there was no need to pass any money based on the other decisions. There has been allegations right from the presidential election or the election petitions which went to the Supreme Court. At least I know there has been allegations of bribery involving all those cases. So probably we will never know. Probably those other cases money may have changed.
But gentlemen, we are only in agreement that an investigation should be carried out. Thank you so much. Katwa Kigen, Edwin Sifuna, and LSK President, also lawyer Eric Mutua. Thank you so much for making time for the big question tonight. Keep talking to us on 2242 and on Twitter using the hashtag The Big Question. We'll be back after this short break.